Hello and welcome to episode 184 of Level Up Your Career. 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions drive the show. I'm Shanice Mitchell-Cox and I will be your host for today. My colleagues Laurie and Dan are in the social chat, so please let them know your name and the city you are joining from. They will post a link to upvote the questions that you would like answered the most, and of course for you to add your own. If your question is selected, your name will appear in the credits at the end of the show, so get yours in early and stay with us to see that happen. Today's episode is all about your must-have project management templates. Project management templates are essential tools for ensuring the successful planning, execution, and monitoring of projects. These templates are structured frameworks and guidelines that streamline processes, enhance communication, and improve overall project efficiency. However, there are numerous templates available, and selecting the right ones can be daunting. To help with your questions today, we have our fantastic panel, so let's jump straight in and meet them. Firstly, I'm delighted to welcome back Laurie Bowman. Laurie Bowman is an accredited trainer for project management and change management for Synchrony projects. Laurie has 30 years of experience in engineering and management roles on complex multidiscipline construction projects and engineering projects. He's a trainer and advisor on planning, assurance, risk management, and control for projects, programs, and portfolios. Lovely to have you back, Laurie.
Very good to be here. Thank you, Shanice. Really looking forward to this evening's conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And our next returning panelist is Richard Campbell. Richard is the Director and Product Engagement Lead at the Agile Business Consortium. He is responsible for developing and delivering the Agile Business Consortium portfolio of products that advance business agility. The consortium products help organisations respond more effectively to the complex and volatile world in which we operate. It's so wonderful to have you here, Richard. Thanks for joining us today.
Excellent. Thanks, Shanice. I've got to declare myself as a bit of a template skeptic, we might say. So I'm looking forward to hearing what the rest of the market thinks about this and look forward to an exciting debate.
Me too. Thanks so much, Richard. And moving on to our third panellist for today is Eileen Roden. Eileen is an accomplished PMO professional, consultant, and co-founder of the House of PMO. With extensive experience, she is a fellow association for the project and management, and a member of prestigious organisations. Eileen frequently speaks at conferences across Europe and is dedicated to the House of PMO. Welcome back to Level Up. It's such a pleasure to have you back.
Thanks, Shanice. And as part of a PMO, we are often the individuals who have to create those templates. So really interesting to get other people's perspectives on what they find useful and why, from a PMO perspective, we play a part in putting them together. Thank you, Shanice.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Eileen. And a real pleasure to introduce our fourth expert panelist for today, Sheila Roberts. Sheila is the Chief Progress Officer at Resilience Professionals Limited. She boasts 30 years of PPM experience, guiding project professionals to achieve success. It's so wonderful to have you here today, Sheila. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Shanice. And unlike Richard, I love a good template as a starting point. So we'll have a lovely debate.
Oh, we love a debate here on Level Up, so it's wonderful to have you here. And wrapping up this incredible panel today is Robert Snyder. Robert is the founder and president of Innovate Elegance, LLC. Over Robert's career, he has had many roles as a developer, database administrator, project manager, change manager, and sales enablement. He has earned PMP and Agile certifications. It's so great to have you here again, Robert. Thank you for coming back to share your incredible expertise.
Thanks, Shanice. It's a delight to be here.
Wonderful, thank you. And to welcome our question master for today is Adriana Santana, who is joining us from the beautiful city of London. How are you today, Adriana?
Hi, Shanice. Trying to survive the heat wave currently, but I'm really good and really excited for today's show.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for helping us with the questions today. And talking of questions, please can we have our first one?
Of course. So the first question comes from Robbie Hamed. He wants to know, why would we use a project management template?
Oh, what a fantastic question. We will go to Robert, Richard, and then Laurie.
I believe that the value of templates helps a kind of agreement factory within a team. A healthy team is a kind of agreement factory, and templates help to improve speed, quality, predictability, visibility, and I believe templates help minimize surprises and reinventing the wheel.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Richard, your thoughts on this question?
Well, the challenge, so why templates are useful is if you are relatively inexperienced, it's a great place to start. You're given almost like a checklist of things you should be considering at a particular part of the project. So templates do give you a good place to go to and say, okay, what of these elements are useful to us for this, the characteristics of the things that we are working on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Laurie, your thoughts on this question, please.
So I agree with Robert. It's a really useful team tool. So it really helps a team set expectations for how different information will be shared amongst each other. So particularly if you're in a multiple project environment or something like that, and you might have a PMO and you want consistency between the teams and a common way of doing things, it'd be very useful in a situation like that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And Sheila, your thoughts on this question, please.
I think others have added some really good points. The only one I would put in addition is that I think it's also helpful if you've got project board members who are not like us through and through project people. If they get used to what they should expect to see at certain points in the project, they'll do better in terms of making the right decisions at the right times.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Eileen, if you could finish us off on this question, please.
I think it's a great way for helping us to order our thoughts and presenting them in a consistent way. Very often when we're, almost kind of whatever stage we are in a project, there's lots of information available and knowing exactly what's required. And so it's really important to know who the template is going to be read and looked at by to make sure that kind of you're presenting your thoughts in a structured way for them to be able to use.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, panel. This has been great insights. And Robbie, we hope you like the answers to this question. So shall we move on? Adriana, can we have our next question, please?
Of course, Shanice. Our next question comes from Maria. She wants to know, do existing templates used in an organization need to be updated themselves? Or is this personal customization? I find some templates difficult to use.
What a great question, Maria. We will go to Robert, Sheila, and then Eileen.
So I see this question as a yes or no question. So my short answer is yes, because anything static would signal a lack of attentiveness, as if the organization hasn't learned. And I believe that templates are a great way to avoid that cliche. We've all experienced a lessons learned exercise that failed to feed back into the organization to make the organization better so that we stop making the same mistakes. And so I believe existing templates, not only does the substance, how we populate them, of course, change from project to project, but I believe they need to evolve to continue to fill the gaps and cover the blind spots that teams realize that they have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And if we could go to Sheila, please.
Yes, and I agree. The answer is yes. They do need to be updated. If we don't update them, we don't reflect changes going on all the time. Our environments change, the organizational priorities change, even understanding what needs to be in any particular template at a point in time changes. And we need to change our templates to reflect that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And Eileen, your thoughts on this?
Okay, so I think there's two different perspectives here. I think if we think over kind of the longer term, kind of 3, 6, 12 months, that as both Robert and Sheila have identified, the template will need to continue to evolve for it to be useful. I think the real challenge is if I've been given a template and I have to fill that in, if I start kind of messing around with that template because I want an extra field or change something, then actually we're kind of losing some of the benefits of consistency, like we talked about in our previous question. However, the one thing I would say is that if you're finding a template difficult to use, don't just kind of sit there and grumble about it. Provide the feedback so the people who've given you that feedback to fit in, or the person who owns that template recognizes it's difficult so they can actually do some improvements.
Yeah, great advice there. Thank you so much. And Laurie, do you want to wrap us up on this question, please?
Sure, yeah, there's not really much to add there, but yeah, certainly agree they should evolve, both to keep pace with the organisation as its way of doing things changes, technology advances. There'll always be tweaks, as well as that user feedback that Eileen covered. That really covers the whole gamut, I feel.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Great answers here. And we hope you enjoy those answers as well, Maria. Thank you so much. Shall we jump to social and see how many of you are here joining us today? So we've got Salate from Nigeria. Wonderful to see you here. It's always wonderful to see all the viewers from across the world. And we've got a regular, Enga Mohammed from Pakistan. It's so lovely to see you. I see you quite often here. So welcome back to Level Up. And Sridath, thank you so much for joining from Cochin in India. As you can see, we have viewers from all across the world, but Antarctica yet. So if there's any Antarcticans out there, please forward them Level Up so we can get them on the radar as well. Brilliant. Let's jump back to our questions. So Adriana, can we have our next question, please?
Of course, we're starting to get a lot of live questions. And the next one comes from Ondimo. He's a regular viewer. He wants to know who is responsible in preparing project management templates.
Okay, so we'll go to Sheila, Laurie, and then Eileen.
I'm afraid this is a real politician's answer in that it depends. It depends on the size of the organisation, whether they've got a PMO set up, whether there's a project management discipline set up. If there is a PMO, great, they'll do it. It may be there's a project management lead and it would be their responsibility. It may be that the organization's signed up to a standardized approach and they have dictated that standardized approach is used. So I'm afraid I'm not giving a straight answer because organizations vary hugely. But what I would say though is if there is a PMO, they are absolutely your first port of call.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Laurie, if we could have your thoughts on this question.
So I agree completely. Firstly, I guess one thing that I would add is it might be handy if you don't yet have a template for a RACI matrix. It might be handy for your team or your projects to have a RACI matrix and include who's responsible for updating the templates, just so it's clear for the project team, whatever the environment is and whoever it is that's responsible for it within your project environment.
Wonderful. That's a great recommendation. Thank you so much. And Eileen, your thoughts on this question?
Well, I can't disagree with Sheila in that the PMO is typically the place where those templates are created and often the centre of excellence part of that PMO. But I do think it's really important for some of the large projects and programs in organisations to have a level of tailoring. So it's worth working with your PMO to say, for this particular project or for this particular program, we'd like to tailor the standard template in a certain way. And now sometimes that might just be with the program logo or the kind of the program name kind of in a particular position across the template, so you can kind of localize them. But the standard template, I'm a PMO advocate.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's great advice there. And Robert, if you could just finalize this question for me.
There are 2 points of ambiguity in this question that I'm gonna play politician and tweak this question. So I consider the RACI matrix. So when I look at the word responsible, the RACI matrix has great intent, but it fosters a lot of ambiguity. And when I see the word preparing, that feels ambiguous. So instead of the RACI matrix, I want to answer this question with a framework that I often use that I call the 5 verbs. the 5 verbs are draft, review, revise, approve, distribute. And so if I could reset this question, who is responsible for drafting a modified project management template? Who's assigned to review and revise? And who's the tiebreaker? Who approves a tweak to a template? So I'd like to just introduce the 5 verbs framework to reduce ambiguity, because I find this word prepare ambiguous, and the RACI matrix is great as an intent that it has. It still fosters too much unacceptable ambiguity, in my opinion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What a great question. Thank you, Wondermoo. Adriana, if we could have our next question, please.
Of course. Our next question comes from Wim. He wants to know, how do you go about the challenge of using templates, but teams using different tools, which makes it harder to consolidate into a single source of truth?
What a great question, Wim. Thank you so much. And we'll go to Laurie and then Robert and Sheila.
So this is really a classic change management issue. So it's really important to understand if you do find that people are using different tools and they're not using a standard template, which is making it harder. Very, very important to work closely with those stakeholders, help them understand why and what's in it for them, and the benefits of using the template, understand what their pain points are, and just help them navigate toward, or firstly, you might learn something about why they are using something else, which might cause a change in the templates that you use, or secondly, you might help them understand, help them make that transition to the template, which helps the overall broader objectives.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Robert, your thoughts on this question?
I think that these templates and just this question subtly raises a really important point about the difference between task conflict and personality conflict. And so, again, I'm not directly answering the question, but I believe that the diversity, the attentiveness, I think it's worth noting that the difference between task conflict, personality conflict, and if teams are using different tools, I love the concept of a tiebreaker, because let's not worry about diverging thinking. Let's anticipate it, proactively manage for different ideas. And so to consolidate and minimize variability and being all over the place, let's anticipate task conflict, minimize personality conflict. And that term tiebreaker, I think, can be a politically safe term to reconcile differences of opinion and variability across the organization.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Sheila, your answers, please.
Thank you. Yeah, this is always a challenge, but we need to understand why they're using different tools and what the single source of truth needs to be. So if there's a single source of truth, we've got a standard approach to what needs to go in there. Is it simply that they're using different tools, which means they've got different formatting and they need to rearrange them into the single source of truth? Or are they actually collecting different information? In which case, that's actually something a bit deeper, need to understand why some of the information needed for the single source of truth is not there, or what extra information is being collected, and can that add to the richness of what's being given back into the central reporting? So I think answering the question why is the starting point here, and sitting down with the team that's using something different and understanding their position, let them understand your position, and then agree exactly how you're going to go about meeting the needs of both.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Richard, do you want to provide your final thoughts on this question?
I think the question very uniquely goes directly to the challenge that I've struggled with templates, and that it is challenging to get here. So my focus is Agile projects where you need to be adaptable and change very rapidly. And the idea of trying to fit into a predefined way of working for a project where the outcomes are very unclear is at the heart of the problem, and why I feel that you need to use templates with a very light touch because they aren't going to fit. You're going to spend more time trying to adjust things and focusing on the real issue, which is value delivery, understanding customer value, and how do we go about delivering solutions. So that's really at the heart of why I would say using them with great care rather than spending a lot of time trying to force them to fit.
Absolutely wonderful. We love a debate here on Level Up. So everyone's answers have been fantastic. So thank you so much. We hope you like the answers to that question. Adriana, can we have our next question, please?
Of course. Next question comes from George Smith in the UK. And he wants to know, could the panel share an example where the use of a project management template has turned a project delivery from failing?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We will go to Robert, Sheila, Eileen, and then Laurie.
What popped into my head was a project charter that one of my previous teams repeatedly had to refer back to because we had a moving target. To Richard's point, we were just groping around. Our headlights, so to speak, didn't shine very far in front of us. We had started a project with just too much ambiguity, too much indecisiveness. And after about 3 weeks of revisiting repeatedly the project charter, we canceled the project. It was a little bit embarrassing. I think it took some courage. I think it was the right decision. And so if you lack the discipline to align on a project charter, stop.
Great advice there. That's really great advice. Thank you. And Sheila, your answers, please.
Yes. And similarly to Robert, it was the use of a business case to look at a project that had been proposed to take 3 systems and create one that took information from each of them and gave it. And the whole of the proposal was based on a set of savings that when we looked at putting it into the business case template, were not real savings. And so therefore, having the template enabled us to quantify the reality of the situation and actually mean that that project didn't start. So we saved it from failing by not starting it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Eileen, your answers, please.
Okay, so I'm going to talk specifically about a scope definition. Very often when we're pulling together our projects, there's lots of things we want to kind of put in there about what the project's going to deliver, when it's going to deliver it. Often what is missed in a free format text is what's not going to be there. And so several projects where we've actually worked with the project team and says, let's delimit it. Let's kind of not just say what's in there, but actually talk about what's not in there so people can see in black and white. So when they're kind of reading through the template, they can see, yes, I agree with all of that, but they actually look through what's not in scope. Oh, I thought that was going to be included. Oh, I thought that was going to be included. And it manages those stakeholder expectations and often prevents scope creep as you go further on through the project.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Laurie, if we could have your answers, please.
I might move to a different example away from the sort of front end, the very highly valuable stuff that the other panelists have spoken about, but one really good example I've seen that's really digitised the performance reporting across a portfolio of projects was to use a schedule template that had all sorts of data codes pre-configured in the standard schedule. So that instead of each project manager creating their own bespoke schedule and then somehow having to manually do reporting themselves, a lot of this data was able to be pulled across the system and done digitally and somewhat automated. So by having this standard template for schedules, because they were quite similar nature projects, each project manager would massage the schedule, the duration and the risks, and delete the WBS elements that didn't apply and what have you. They would use these standardized schedules that just almost completely automated reporting. So it was a very, very good outcome for the program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We hope you liked your answers there, George. Adriana, can we have our next question, please?
Of course, Shanice. Our next question comes from Grace Burgess. She wants to know how Agile is using a project management template.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Richard, take it away.
Yes, I couldn't very well duck out of this question, that's for sure. So I think this is at the heart of the problem. You could view that the use of predefined documentation is not agile at all. I mean, it's basic agile principle is we value people and interactions above documentation, and putting too much effort into documenting everything in its fixed format, especially something that's not applied specifically to the domain or the situation we are in right now, is wasting time, and it's putting inappropriate focus on the big issue, which should always be value, value, value. So it's how do you engage more with customers? How do you understand the situation? How can you experiment to move the project forward? What can you learn from this? And then you talk to people about it to try to move it forward. So many of those things, very few templates are necessarily going to contribute to that. They are subsidiary, if you like, to the primary purpose of the project. And that is why too much emphasis on the template and not enough on your agility is what kills agile projects.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Laurie, your thoughts on this question?
So how Agile is using a project management template, it can be as agile as it needs to be. So the real art of designing a template is to have the right balance of standardization as well as the right amount of flexibility, so that there is that room for creativity. And depending on how agile style your projects are, quite likely you're going to have a lot more room for movement. Whereas if you've got a more traditional, a more structured, or a well-defined project that might be a typical waterfall style project, generally speaking, you're more likely to have a more structured and probably a little bit more prescriptive type template.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Sheila, your thoughts on this question?
I think that templates and agile are not, don't need to be contradictory. And in fact, if you look at the Agile PM manual, there are plenty of templates in there. What I think is important is how you use them. A template can actually save a lot of time that you can then use with your people interactions. And using templates wisely can allow sufficient documentation completely in line with Agile. So I think that it's about how you use them and how the templates are designed, as opposed to yes or no to using them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Robert, if we could have your thoughts on this, please.
So I believe Agile, it's a software-centric methodology, right? And one of its pillars is frequency. The reason why we benefit from the reason why templates and documentation are unpopular is because the high upfront cost of maintaining the template, populating the template. So I acknowledge that the upfront cost for structured documentation is high. So why would we ever use them? Because the marginal cost, the ongoing cost, laboriousness of information sharing and collaboration is very low. So templates help minimize marginal costs. Agile is not trying to minimize marginal cost. Agile is trying to be very mindful about frequency of go-live events for the software.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Eileen, would you like to wrap us up on this question, please?
I think the key word here is appropriate usage. Providing templates for use actually will help in every situation. And I think when we start thinking of templates, I think our mind often goes straight to a 20-page Word document with lots of kind of headings and little boxes that need to be filled into minute detail. But even designing a Kanban board template that is going to be used across the project, having a standard template for managing our backlog, which might be, kind of in a electronic format, but there's still a kind of an agreed way of holding information, is still a template. So I think when we use template, we need to get away from thinking just Word documents or even a PowerPoint or an Excel document. We actually can create templates in the various toolkits that we use that kickstart and kind of save that reinvention time every time we start a new project.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. What great answers, panelists. Thank you. Adriana, if we can have our next questions, the live questions are stacking up. So let's get a move on.
Yeah, of course. We have another live question coming, and it's from Ondimu again. He wants to know who is responsible in preparing project management templates.
Oh, who?
We had this question, right?
Had that one.
Yeah.
We have had this one. Is there another live question that we could skip to?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll choose another one. From George Smith again. What is the purpose of using templates for project management?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. If we go to Robert, Sheila, Eileen, and Laurie.
Are we looking at the purpose or the risks?
I think it's the risk of using them. What the word that came to my mind was feeling constricted. Some people who they just want freedom, they just want creativity, and that is first and foremost in their mind every day when they go to work. You know what? Templates is about governance, and creativity might be upstream. So when we conceive what is the next most valuable problem that the team is going to solve, but I think that their templates are risky when it risks alienating team members who feel constricted by, a 15 field project charter. And to Eileen's point earlier, well, what if there's a 16th question? What if there's a 17th question that I feel is relevant for this project? So the word that came to my mind was templates risk team members or stakeholders feeling constrained.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Sheila, if we could have your answers on this question, please.
So if we're looking at the risks of using project management templates, I think the major risk is people seeing them as just a tick box and putting an answer down rather than carefully thinking through what is relevant to this project in this situation, and carefully considering why that template has that section in it relevant to this project. We need to make sure that people see templates as having an advantage and what their purpose is in the project, rather than just, I've got to do this to satisfy the PMO.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Eileen, your thoughts on this question?
So I think there's a couple of things. I think firstly, the number of times I've seen people cut and paste, so very similar to what Sheila's mentioned there, is they fill this paragraph in from kind of previous projects before and they think, it's good enough, it's similar enough. And so, they're even though they're kind of writing it again, it really is just a cut and paste, and that's a real danger. And I think there is a danger, I think, in terms of what Robert said about there might be some more information that needs to be added. And I think there's a real kind of call out there to those people who are designing templates, is to make sure that there is the flexibility for any template for people to add some free text under and anything else you want to add, to allow people to do that kind of additional information in a format there, or even stuff where they're not quite sure where it might fit. They do get the opportunity to add that onto those templates.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Laurie, if we could have your answers, please.
Any project, if you're a PMO and you're implementing a new template, it's most important at the start that you get the need right, you engage the right stakeholders, you really understand what is the need that's being served and engage the right people so that those people are going to feel committed, they're going to understand, you're going to overcome most of the obstacles when end users tend to use it. So it's that front end planning, understand the need, empathise with the stakeholders who are going to be impacted when they have to use the template.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Richard, if you could wrap us up on this question, please.
Yes, I wasn't going to answer it because the question written is different from what everyone seems to be answering. We're talking about risks. I thought I would dive in. And so if you said, what is the risk of using templates? Well, I'd say that, the risk is inappropriate focus. And so using them with great care. And I think there's some very valid points about how they can contribute to align multiple projects and to support governance practices. But the risk of using them definitely is about the overkill, the overhead, and the defocus that you get through their inappropriate use. So it's not don't use them, just use them with great care.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And apologies for the question confusion there. We will take another question and it will be the right one this time. So Adriana, can we have our question, please?
Yes. Next question is from Hattie Garcia. She wants to know, are there any templates that consider the wider organizational benefits as well as the individual project benefits?
That's a fantastic question, Hattie. Thank you so much. Robert, Sheila, and then Laurie, please.
My second favorite template for wider organization benefits is a tool I call I like, I wish, I hope, I wonder. So every week at the bottom of employees' status reports, employees need to have those 4 sentences at the bottom of their status report. You don't have to finish the sentence every week, but you have to look at those 4 sentences every week. And it serves as a low footprint engagement survey because your manager needs to know where your head is. If you have a compliment, finish the sentence, I like. If you have some concerns, forward looking or backward looking, finish the sentences, I wish, I hope. And if you want to ask a delicate, politically sensitive, an innocent question, finish the sentence, I wonder. So my second favorite template is I like, I wish, I hope, I wonder at the bottom of a weekly status report.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Sheila, your answers, please.
Well, I'm a great advocate of business resilience and the role that projects have to play in developing business resilience. And I know there are a set of templates available that you can actually use for your projects that have been adapted to consider the contribution to the organizational business resilience as well as delivering the project. So I'm a huge fan of those, and I know they can be downloaded from the Resilience Professionals website. So, it just looks more widely at what's going on beyond the project and how that project will actually make that organization more resilient.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we'll get a link for that in the chat. So we'll get that to you, audience. Thank you. And Laurie, your thoughts on this question, please.
So there's a lot of really good templates out there for preliminary and detailed business cases. One that I've come across lately, which I really like, is right at the front end. It's called investment logic mapping. And it's a nice one because it really does prompt that visual representation of what the benefits are right at the early stage when you're engaging with some of these sort of higher level and creative types to help make sure that overall intention is mapping what the strategic goals, as well as giving people a visual way to quickly interpret and contribute as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Richard, if you could wrap us up again on this question.
So again, this was one I thought I wasn't going to respond to, but I was inspired by, first of all, most immediately, Robert's question. But prior to that, Eileen said something which really triggered a point with me, which was, so Eileen raised the issue of, effectively a Kanban board is a form of template, and absolutely, that's a very, very valid contribution here. So in an Agile context, how you run your Agile activities, your Agile projects, there are a whole bunch of templates specific to that process. So absolutely right to call that out. And then what Robert was talking about sort of led me to think about, within the context of Agile, the retrospectives and how you perform a retrospective at the end of every sprint. And a big part of that retrospective is to focus on our ways of working. What have we, beyond what we actually achieved in this sprint in terms of customer value delivery, what have we learned where we should be improving how we work, our ways of working? And I think to have a template that asks questions like, so what should we do more of? What should we do less of? What should we keep doing? What should we stop doing? Those sorts of questions, which actually is very closely related to what Robert said within his context. But these are very essential templates to be used.
Absolutely agree. Thank you so much, panelists. Great answers to this question. And Hattie, we hope that you got value out of these. Adriana, can we jump to our next question, please?
Of course. Our next question comes from Wim. He wants to know, if you work with external suppliers, is it worthwhile forcing them to use the standard templates if they have their own, which also seems to have all the info?
Wonderful, thank you. Eileen, Robert, Sheila, Laurie, and then Richard.
I really think you need to look at who's going to be using the templates and where the overlaps might be. Often we get kind of very precious about not created here and, kind of we've used ours for ages, that's fine. But I think you have to get past the template and say, well, what's the purpose of the template? What's it going to be used for? Who's going to see it? Before you kind of make that decision. But I think an interesting use of the word force, and we don't want to become kind of pedants of English, but I think there needs to be that conversation right at the very beginning so people are clear in terms of why particular templates are going to be used on that particular project or in that particular relationship.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And Robert?
The more discipline, the better. The more transparency, the better. The more that is written down, you minimize personality conflict and you turn it into task conflict. It's not like I'm disagreeing with you. I'm disagreeing with what's on the page. So transparency, discipline. When projects get into trouble, the cliche is they under-communicate. How often does a project say, we over-communicated in this, that, like there's noise. There is a such thing as over-communicating. There's noise, but I think if we're just talking about templates, the risk, the potential downside, the prevalence and the magnitude of risk and downside is when you under communicate. So this is a great opportunity for collaboration between the external supplier and the client. Maximize the discipline, maximize the transparency. Use both standard template. You can commingle, reconcile the templates, I think.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And Sheila?
Yes, I think it's all about supplier relationships. As a very small supplier, we have always had to use the client templates and just adapt what we do. On the other hand, if you've got two large suppliers, and they each have their own systems they need to feed, the collaboration needs to be there, the relationship needs to be there. And if both have got the information that they need, why not use both?
Fantastic insight. Thank you so much. And Laurie, your thoughts on this question?
Yes, I agree with Sheila. So to get to the detail there, given that the external supplier seems to have all the info, it really is a process. You can either adapt on your side and have some sort of a mapping table or some method for pivoting that information into your format, or you can invite the supplier, and it really depends on the capability, the willingness, and that sort of thing. But either way, there should be some way to translate from one format to another and to work it out depending on the situation.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And Richard, your thoughts to this question?
Right. So what comes to mind when this question came up is external suppliers. It sort of works. I know you tend to think about you're sitting in a company and you have suppliers coming in, but sometimes the company you're in is supplying up. So I think this was something that Sheila related to. And they're common issues, really, which is how do you align in the context of a project? And it's been troublesome for quite a while, this idea that, if you are selling a solution to another company, you need to contract with them to deliver that. But in an agile world, which is where my focus is always, is contracts and agile clash, quite strictly. In many of the challenges that we're talking about using templates here, exactly the same thing occurs. So how do you get in place a way of working with either your suppliers or your customer in an agile way? And there are various very useful models which are closer to canvases if you can develop a contractual agreed structure to work by. But communications is the key. How do you achieve that alignment in a light touch way and then put contractual structures around it? It's quite a game, but I would refer to the Lean Agile Alliance work in this area around Lean Agile procurement in particular. There's some very clever stuff in that space.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, panellists. There's been great answers. And Wim, we hope you enjoyed those and have taken value from that as well. Adriana, should we move on to our next question?
Of course. Our next question actually comes from one of our panelists, Robert, and he wants to know, how do templates shape culture?
Fantastic question. Laurie, Sheila, Richard.
Well, it's a really interesting question. So if you've got an organisational culture and you want people to be reflecting that culture as they do their work, as has been touched on earlier, that template should be provoking and asking those right questions that evoke thought in that particular area. So whether that might be sort of internal relationships within the team, or it might be sort of external social relationships, it could be other factors, it could be environmental with a lot of the emerging environmental reporting requirements. Whatever it is that the company values and wants embedded as part of the culture, to prompt questions that get people mindful of that while they're doing their work can be a very powerful influence.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Sheila?
I think this can be asked both ways. So how does template shape culture? But how does culture shape templates as well? It can go both ways. So I'm a great fan of looking at the culture, and some templates can be used to help shape the culture. One of them in business resilience, in looking at your project teams, is an energy template and considering the level of energy available. So if the culture is not right, you're not going to get much energy, and you'll understand it. But the other way around, how does culture shape templates, I think is also very important. So Richard's talked about the approach of Agile, and you don't want too many templates, but you want the right templates. And the culture will help to shape what the templates are, where the focus is, and how they get used so that they're right for that organization and that approach. So the culture works in lots of directions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Richard, your thoughts on this question, please?
Yes, I'd pick up the direction of travel that Sheila was referring to there. I would see, I'd always focus it back to previous questions that we've had in this area about what you're trying, well, in an agile world, the culture you're trying to establish always is empowerment, of adaptability, of understanding or reassigning customer value and learning with everything that you do. And the challenge, the impact on culture that use of templates can be is that if those templates are used, which in some way slow down or defocus from that process of learning, experimenting, adapting, and delivering customer value, that is detracting from the correct delivery or outcome, I would argue. It makes the organization more easy to govern, but makes it less agile. So that is the cultural grating point that I would see that you're facing here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Eileen, your thoughts on this question?
So I think the content of the templates they tell a story of the organization and what that culture is. So if you've got a long, very detailed template with kind of fields around specific areas. So if if 90% of the template is around cost and finance, and it needs to be signed off by 4 or 5 different people before it gets approved, then that tells you're very much in a kind of control culture. And I think changing the templates and changing the focus of those templates is often a good indication to the organization that we're looking to change. So, kind of going from a kind of 20 different boxes to 3 or 4 different boxes says, actually, we want to give you more opportunity to be a little bit more creative about how we do things around here, rather than kind of drive you down a specific path. We actually just want it signed off by immediate boss or your immediate line manager, then that starts to say we're trying to empower people down the organization so it can help support changes in culture that you want to make in your organization.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Robert, we hope you've liked the answers. Would you like to add some thoughts to this question?
I absolutely would. I loved everyone's responses, but of course, I'm delighted to go last. So the two culture traits that come to my mind are latency and laboriousness. I believe templates help reduce and minimize latency of information sharing. I just think that's incredibly valuable to help speed to market, et cetera. And laboriousness, templates help minimize reinventing the wheel. It maximizes the feedback loop from those, whether it's Agile retrospective or any lessons learned. It just reduces laboriousness so that we combat fatigue and burnout. So I know that templates and documentation feel petty and they feel administrative, and people don't want to get stuck. And I'm not advocating for meeting minutes at all. I think meeting minutes are terrible, but I love the phrase "small hinges swing large doors." Small hinges swing large doors, and I believe that templates and structured documentation, they're a small hinge that swings a large door. And when you think of code and data, they're very unforgiving and they're very structured. Well, at what point upstream are you going to get with your documentation very unforgiving and unstructured? Because the more ambiguity you keep upstream, well, then why even code? Because it's just improv. There's a time and place for improv. But I think that the laboriousness and the latency are really helped. The templates shape a culture of minimal laboriousness and latency.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And that was a great question. So thanks for submitting it and giving us some thought-provoking discussions today. Adriana, next and final question, please.
Of course. Our final question comes from Willie Hernandez. He wants to know, based on your experience, how many templates are usually used during the course of a project, and how useful is it to use as fewer templates as possible?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Sheila and then Laurie, please.
I'll go back to my earlier answer of it depends, because a very small project with a very small team will need fewer templates than a large, complex, multi-organization team. So we've got to do it appropriate to the situation and the project. Use as few as possible. Well, I think that's always good advice, but as few as possible, maybe quite a lot in some projects, and in others, only a small handful. So it really has to be thought through on the size, the complexity, the duration, and the organizational standards.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Laurie, if we could have your answers to this question.
Yeah. So a different one, a difficult one to give specific answer on, but generally, it's very useful if the templates can be embedded within the tools with holistic thinking, and particularly when it comes to reporting, fusing data, that sort of thing. So the example I gave before, where there was a portfolio of projects and each project manager started using the same schedule template, which also had the costings for the project, which also had all sorts of data codes that were used to slice and dice reports to the minister, reports to the executive, reports to the senior project managers, reports to the project manager. So by having that structured approach, suddenly reporting and communication went from taking 3 weeks out of every month down to 2 days at the end of every month, because it was very much a data system-driven tool. So it became highly efficient. So as much as possible, rather than bespoke spreadsheets and bespoke, PDF documents, if it can be embedded within the system, it can be really useful and do a lot of that integration between systems as well as between people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Robert, your thoughts on this question?
So Adriana, Willie, I'm comfortable giving you a number of templates. So I'm happy to answer that literally. But the spirit of your question, the word that came to my mind is habits. Templates foster habits. And to whatever degree a team can identify, these are the habits, the rhythm that we want in our interaction. Habits help us transcend mechanics. So many teams, in my opinion, squabble and disagree, and they're just trying to figure out the mechanics. To use a dance analogy on the dance floor, they will never transcend to style and beauty and elegance because they're mired in the mechanics. So templates help us transcend mechanics and move into style. On my experience, I count about 20 templates that are appropriate cross-project, 20-ish templates that I would put under the umbrella of project management, process, and change management. And I count about 20 templates that are under the umbrella of technology, design, build, test. But this phrase, fewer templates is possible, that's a red flag for me, because that means we want to minimize our healthy habits, which means you're going to reinvent the wheel. That's like priority whiplash or shapeless culture. So I would never encourage, let's minimize templates. That's just like reinventing the wheel and learning nothing from your past.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Eileen, if you just want to finish us off on this question.
Okay, so I'm going to just answer in a very kind of slightly different way. If we go stereotypically, more than the project manager wants and less than the PMO want, I think is kind of the answer to kind of how many templates are used. And I think the important bit is at the beginning of the project is to have that conversation and recognize, and I go back to, there's no point in using a template if you don't know what you're using it for. So actually agreeing up front and recognizing where templates are going to add value to the delivery of the project and agree what that is. So whether that's 2, 22, 222, it really doesn't matter as long as you know each one of them is going to add value.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What a great answers to this question. And Willie, we hope you enjoyed it. So I'd like to thank all of our producers for your excellent questions today. Great job, and a great job to our panelists for providing such insightful answers. If you watch out for your name in the credits, if you've submitted a question, that would be absolutely fantastic. Panel, it's time to get your closing remarks. So if I could just walk my way around the panel. Laurie, how did you think the show went today?
Oh, it was fantastic. So yeah, thank you so much, Shanice, and thank you, fellow panelists. There were some really interesting insights there and a few nuggets for me. And thank you very much, listeners, for your awesome questions. In wrap up for me, I think we can design these templates properly. We really can improve the communication, improve the rich coherence between teams, and take a lot of the burden away. So really valuable discussion. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thanks for coming today, Laurie. Richard, your closing remarks, please.
Well, I feel I've really learned a great deal from this. I declared at the beginning I was quite skeptical about the use of templates, but I think listening to my colleagues here, they've opened my eyes, I think, to some value which I had not really emphasized or appreciated enough. So I've gained masses from this, and I hope the audience has done likewise.
Absolutely. It's always wonderful to learn from each other here at Level Up. So great job today, panelists. Eileen, your closing remarks, please.
So what I found quite interesting is I get the impression from the questions that most of them have come from the project management community, and we've not had many people or from a PMO perspective give a PMO perspective of some of the challenges kind of they have in creating them. But I do know, and having been on the brunt end when I actually did some project management, bad templates are just rubbish. And I think, we've talked about today kind of uses of those templates, but I do think there's a whole other kind of subject area in terms of what makes a good template and what makes it kind of easy to fill in, that I think is an area for people to look at as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining us again, Eileen. It's always wonderful to have you here. Sheila, your closing remarks, please.
I think, like others, I always learn from these sessions, but I think we've had some fantastic questions today. And the questions have allowed that really good discussion. So thank you to everyone who submitted the questions and brought out that discussion. And thanks to my colleagues who actually have given me some good insights too.
Absolutely, I agree. And, those questions drive the show. So thank you, audience. And thank you, Sheila, for taking your time to provide your insights today. Robert, your closing remarks, please.
Follow the money. What I mean by follow the money is think about the cost profile of your communication, and how do templates shape your cost profile. When you minimize templates, it's understandable because it's low upfront cost, but it's high marginal cost. Without templates, you're caught in meeting gridlock and email overload. With templates, why is it unpopular? High upfront cost. Why are benefiting from documentation, which is effectively a love letter to your future team? Why is benefiting from documentation popular? Low marginal cost. That's called scalability. So without templates, your scalability stinks. With templates, your scalability has amazing potential. Follow the money. Follow the money.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you. And Adriana, what did you think of today's show today?
It's been a pleasure to be part of this show. The panel has been amazing, and we've had so many great questions and so many diverse answers. So I absolutely loved it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being such a great question master. And thank you all for joining us today. You can head over to our YouTube channel. And if you hit that subscribe bell, it only takes a minute and it really helps us grow Level Up as much as we can. And if you can share this video with your LinkedIn network, the more we share, the more we know and the more we grow. Over on our website, you can search for answers to 1,900 questions. It's a comprehensive free resource connecting you with 200 experts from around the world. Don't forget, you can also listen to Level Up Your Career on your preferred podcast platform. Just search Level Up Your Career with APMG and you'll find us there. Coming up on the shows, my colleague Stefan will be addressing the big questions around change management on Monday, the 11th of September at 8 a.m. UK time. If you are interested in a career as a business analyst, you can join my colleague Nick on Friday, the 15th of September at 2 p.m. UK time. And then on Monday, 18th of September at 2 p.m, we will be discussing how to build a culture of collaboration. So join us, at 8 a.m. UK time on Monday, the 18th of September, and level up your career with APMG. Thank you so much for joining. Have a lovely weekend.